Monster Kody Scott, a menace to South Central LA. Kody Scott, known by his street name Monster, emerged as a figure of infamy within society due to his involvement in gangbanging activities in Los Angeles. Born in 1963, Scott joined the 8 Gangster Crips at a young age, engaging in a life of violence and crime. He was notorious for his ruthless reputation, participating in gang conflicts, drug trade, and numerous shootings. However, after serving time in prison, he underwent a remarkable transformation, renouncing his gang affiliations and dedicating himself to advocating against gang life. Scott's autobiography, Monster, the autobiography of an LA gang member, shed light on his past and became a catalyst for his work as an anti-gang activist and interventionist. But how did Kody Scott's life unfold, leading him to become a notorious gangster known as Monster? What circumstances and experience shaped his journey into the heart of Los Angeles gang activity? From the harsh realities of his environment to gaining power and respect within the gang culture, Scott's story is a complex tale of survival, desperation, and ultimately, redemption. So, how was his life? Childhood in South Central. Kody Dejon Scott was born to Ernest Scott and Bertie Canada on November 13, 1963 in Los Angeles, California. As the second youngest among 4 brothers and 2 sisters, Kody showed early signs of intelligence and potential. However, his childhood was marked by challenging circumstances and difficult family dynamics. Ernest Scott, who was not his biological father, treated him differently, leading to a sense of exclusion and favoritism within the household. It wasn't until his teenage years that Kody learned his real father's identity, Dick Bass, a professional football player for the Los Angeles Rams. His mother's short-lived relationship with Dick ended when she became pregnant with Kody. In 1970, the strained relationship between Ernest and Bertie Scott reached its breaking point, leading to their divorce. Following their separation, Ernest Scott would visit the family on weekends, but still showed a lack of affection towards young Kody. 2 years later, in 1972, Kody's mother made the decision to move the family to a house on West 69th Street and Denker Avenue, a crime-ridden neighborhood. With the separation, Bertie became the sole provider for her children, working multiple jobs to make ends meet. This left young Kody unsupervised and exposed to the realities of life on the streets. Initially, Kody had no intentions of joining a gang, but after being assaulted by older schoolmates who forcibly took his lunch money, his perspective began to shift. Seeking a sense of belonging and protection, Kody found himself drawn to his neighbor, Stanley Tookie Williams, who happened to be the leader of the Westside Crips street gang. He spent more time with Tookie and the members of the Westside Crips and became increasingly influenced by their way of life. And as he developed deeper into the gang culture, he learned about their unwritten rules, the hierarchy within the gang, and the risks and rewards associated with their activities. The gang provided a distorted sense of identity and purpose, fueling his descent into a life of crime. Early entry into the 8 Gangster Crips. At 11, during his 6th grade graduation, Scott was initiated into the 8 Gangster Crips. Part of the initiation process involved a car theft and engaging in a fierce gunfight with their rival gang, the Bloods. Tragically, on that very same day, he committed his first murder. In addition, he had to endure a brutal physical beating by other members of the gang as a test of his loyalty and toughness. Abandoning his education, Scott embraced a life of crime, violence, and illicit activities. He fought alongside his fellow 8 gangsters, his young mind absorbing the grim reality of a world where disputes were settled with bullets rather than words. One incident that solidified his fearsome image occurred when he attempted to rob an African-American man walking through the neighborhood. However, the tables turned when the man defiantly punched Scott in the face, catching him off guard. In the chaos, one of the gang members intervened, physically restraining the man to prevent his escape. Kody unleashed a relentless assault on the man, subjecting him to kicks and stomps that lasted approximately 20 minutes. This attack left the man in a coma, permanently disfiguring his face. Word of this shocking incident quickly spread among the Crips, and the police officers at the crime scene were overheard referring to whoever committed such an act as a monster. This information made its way back to Scott, and from that point onwards, he became known as Monster among his fellow ETGs, embracing the name as his street moniker. Scott became notorious, and his involvement in gang activities escalated. He participated in various criminal acts, including drug dealing, robberies, and assault. The pursuit of power, respect, and territorial control fueled his aggressive behavior, leading to a constant cycle of violence. Arrests, shootings, and hospitalization of Kody Scott. Scott was arrested 3 times between the ages of 14 and 15 and sent to various detention and rehabilitation facilities. The first arrest occurred in 1978 when he was just 14. It happened after Scott shot an employee at a fast food restaurant who had assaulted his younger brother, Kershawn, and subsequently turned his aggression towards Scott himself. Soon after being released from jail, Scott's life took another unfortunate turn. He was wrongly accused of shooting a member of the Inglewood family Bloods. The incident occurred while Shakur and fellow Crips members were en route to a roller skating rink in Compton, California. Despite his innocence, Scott found himself behind bars again, facing the grim reality of the criminal justice system. On February 14, 1979, yet another arrest befell Shakur, this time for charges of assault and grand theft auto. As a result, he was sentenced to serve a 9-month term at Camp Munns in Lake Hughes, California. At 16, Scott was set up by a group of girls who were dating friends from his set, which led to an ambush orchestrated by 3 adult members of the Rollin' 60s gang. The reason behind this ambush was his active involvement in the gang war, where he had been responsible for shooting and attacking many members of the Rollin' 60s. During the ambush, he was shot 6 times, but miraculously survived. He had to spend several weeks in the hospital, fighting for his life and trying to recover from the physical and emotional trauma he had endured. After he was released from the hospital, he organized retaliatory missions and recruited more members to the Crip gang. Not even the birth of his daughter could sway him from his path. At 18, he was shot again during a failed carjacking attempt, but he remained committed to the gangbanging life. Imprisonment and redemption. In 1984, Scott found himself facing the consequences of his involvement in gang-related activities. He was arrested and sentenced to a 7-year term at Chino State Prison. During his time behind bars, he met a Muslim leader named Muhammad, who introduced him to the teachings of Islam. Intrigued by the sermons and inspired by the newfound meaning he found in the teachings, Scott began embracing Islam. After serving 4 years, Scott was released from prison in 1988, and he returned to his neighborhood. He decided to marry his longtime girlfriend, Tamu, and together they started a family, blessed with 3 children. Despite his initial steps toward a new chapter in life, Scott's early 20s brought him back into gang politics. In addition, a rampant spread of drugs plagued the South Central community, and he developed an addiction to cocaine and PCP that further complicated his journey. Throughout his struggles, Scott remained in contact with Muhammad, who was still incarcerated. Despite Muhammad's positive influence on him through their shared faith, Scott found it difficult to fully abandon the gang lifestyle that had become deeply ingrained in his identity. 3 years after his release, Scott found himself back in trouble with the law. He was arrested for assault and grand theft auto, having beaten up a crack dealer who turned out to be a police informant and stealing his van. This led to a 7-year prison sentence in one of California's most notorious institutions, Pelican Bay. Considered a threat to security, he was placed in solitary confinement, enduring 23 hours a day alone. From monster to advocate. It was during this isolating period that Scott embarked on a profound personal and political transformation. He delved into a journey of self-discovery, moving away from a criminal mentality and seeking a deeper understanding of himself. In a symbolic act, he changed his name from Monster Kody to Kody Scott, which translated to unifier and gatherer of people. Shakur recognized the destructive nature of gang violence within the Crips and aimed to unite all Crips gangs, leading him to join CCO, Consolidated Crip Organization. CCO advocated against inter-Crip violence and worked towards peace instead of engaging in conflicts with blood gangs. After a few years, he left CCO and became involved with the Black nationalist New African Independence movement, renouncing his gang membership in favor of a revolutionary path. He dedicated his life to the liberation of New Africans, striving for their freedom and empowerment. While still incarcerated in maximum security, Shakur wrote his book, The Monster, the autobiography of an LA gang member, which was published in 1993. The book provided a raw and unfiltered look into the brutal realities of gang life. Shakur openly discussed his involvement in various crimes and murders, expressing remorse for the path he had once believed was necessary to save his neighborhood. The Monster resonated deeply with readers, selling over 300,000 copies in the United States and earning more than $800,000. The book offered a stark glimpse into the harsh realities of gang life, shedding light on its destructive nature. Through his memoir, Shakur revealed his personal growth, regret, and the realization that true salvation lay not in violence, but in uplifting his community. After his release in 1995, Shakur became a prominent figure, with his name making headlines and requests pouring in for interviews and appearances. In the years that followed, Shakur utilized his platform to advocate for the end of violence within gangs. He has also spoke passionately about the struggle for independence, freedom, and socialism among New Africans. Being in the public eye came with its problems. Although he had left gang life behind, Shakur had to be cautious and watch his back. The police kept a close eye on him, hoping to find any reason to bring him back into custody. He tried to live a normal life, even recording a rap song and meeting Tupac Shakur. Unfortunately, his drug addiction made it difficult for him to stay on the right track. Sadly, his once resounding message of unity began to fade into silence. In 2007, Shakur found himself sought by police again for parole violations and was listed amongst the top 10 most wanted gang members. It was alleged that he broke into the home of an acquaintance, assaulted him, and stole his car. He was later sentenced to solitary confinement for 6 years in a state prison. And despite this setback, he managed to release his fictional publication, Thug Life, in 2008 while still in prison. He served 2/3 of his sentence and was released in August 2012. Following his release, Shakur was forced to leave Los Angeles County and settle in another part of South Central California. He embraced a new identity as a new African nationalist and revolutionary, advocating for land, independence, and socialism. Remarkably, none of his children followed in his gang-related footsteps, and many of his former associates have either been imprisoned for life or lost their lives. Death of Kody Scott. Shakur's life ended on June 6, 2021, when he was discovered deceased in a tent within a homeless encampment in Oceanside, California. The cause of his untimely passing was determined to be a stroke, as confirmed by the San Diego County Coroner's Office. While his physical presence may no longer be among us, Shakur's legacy lives on. His struggles, triumphs, and the impact he made on those who knew his story continue to resonate. The memory of his determination to overcome adversity and his unwavering pursuit of a better world will forever be etched in our hearts and minds.